You love your baby more than anything in this world. You would never intentionally do something to hurt them. But what if I told you that some of the most common, everyday things you do with your baby are quietly damaging their emotional world in ways they cannot tell you about? Not because you are careless, not because you are a bad parent, but because nobody ever explained what is actually happening inside your baby when these moments occur. Today, we are covering 8 things you probably do daily that hurt your baby's feelings. And by the end of this video, you will never see these ordinary moments the same way again. Let us start with number 1. And this one might surprise you because it sounds like responsible parenting advice. Waiting before you respond to your baby's cries. You may have read somewhere that letting your baby fuss for a few minutes builds independence or self-soothing skills. The intention is good. The reality, however, is very different. When a baby cries and no response comes, their body floods with cortisol, which is the primary stress hormone. And here is the critical part. In the first year of life, repeated stress hormone spikes without a calming presence from a caregiver can actually affect how the brain gets wired. The areas involved in emotional regulation and trust are directly shaped by these early experiences. This does not mean one late response ruins everything, but consistent patterns of delayed comfort teach the developing brain a very specific lesson about whether the world is safe and whether help actually comes. The pattern is what matters, not the occasional moment. Number 2 is something you probably do without even realizing it. Speaking to your baby in a tense voice. Picture this scenario. You are exhausted, stressed, running on practically no sleep. You pick up your baby and say something loving, but your voice is tight and strained. Here's what you need to understand. Babies are remarkably sensitive to the emotional quality of your voice, not just the words. Research has shown that infants as young as 6 months old show measurable stress responses in their bodies when they overhear adult arguments, even while sleeping, asleep and still reacting. So when your voice carries tension, even while saying sweet things, your baby does not process the words. They feel the emotional texture, and to them, a stress tone signals that something is wrong. Taking one slow breath before picking up your baby can genuinely shift your nervous system just enough to change the message your baby receives. Number 3 is forcing social interactions. You have seen it happen. A relative reaches out enthusiastically toward your baby. Your baby turns away, looks down, or begins to fuss. The adult response is often to push harder, getting closer, talking louder, trying to coax engagement. But your baby is not being shy or difficult. They are communicating a boundary. Babies use gaze aversion as a way to manage overwhelming stimulation. It is their way of saying, "This is too much right now." When that signal gets consistently overridden by adults who push past it, babies absorb a deeply uncomfortable lesson. Their attempts to set limits do not matter. The people meant to protect them will not honor their signals. No single enthusiastic grandparent causes lasting harm, but repeated patterns of pushing past your baby's attempts to disengage get stored not as memories, but as a physical, body-level sense of how the world operates. Number 4 is dismissing your baby's emotions. And this is the one almost every parent does without thinking. Your baby is crying over something that seems trivial to you. Maybe you took something out of their hands. Your natural, instinctive response is to say, "You are okay. You are fine." Here's what the science tells us. Babies do not yet have the neurological capacity to regulate their own emotions. That ability, located primarily in the prefrontal cortex, does not fully mature until well into early adulthood. What babies rely on instead is borrowing your calm nervous system to help settle their own. But when you minimize what they feel, you are not providing that settling function. The distress has nowhere to go. Over time, babies who experience repeated emotional dismissal start developing a confusing gap between what they feel internally and what they are told about that experience. That gap is one of the earliest roots of anxiety and difficulty trusting their own feelings later in life. You do not need to fix the emotion. You simply need to acknowledge it. That single shift changes everything. I've linked a resource in the description that I think you'll find really helpful. Number 5 is something nobody warned you about. What happens when your face goes still while you are on your phone? Everyone talks about screen time for babies, but the real issue is what your face does when you are absorbed in a device. Decades of infant research through what are called still face experiments demonstrated something powerful. When a mother suddenly became expressionless and unresponsive, babies within seconds became visibly distressed. They tried desperately to re-engage, using every social tool they had, and when nothing worked, they collapsed inward and showed signs of acute stress. When you are fully absorbed in your phone, your face essentially does the same thing. It goes blank and unresponsive. To your baby, who is constantly reading your face as their primary source of information about whether the world is safe, that blank expression triggers genuine alarm. Your face is your baby's emotional mirror. When that mirror goes dark repeatedly throughout the day, it registers in a real and meaningful way. Number 6 is overstimulation, and this one is almost a cultural problem. We are surrounded by the message that more stimulation equals more development. Bright toys, baby classes, sensory experiences, flashing lights, all of it comes from love. But a newborn's nervous system can only handle a tiny fraction of the sensory input that adults barely notice. A television in the background, people talking, music playing, a phone buzzing. What feels normal to you can feel genuinely overwhelming to an immature nervous system. The signs of overstimulation, crying, arching the back, going glassy-eyed, looking away, are almost always misread. Parents respond by adding more stimulation to distract or soothe, which makes things worse. What an overstimulated baby actually needs is the opposite: quiet, dim light, stillness, and a calm adult nearby. Less is not deprivation. Sometimes less is exactly what the developing nervous system needs most. Number 7 will change how you see completely ordinary moments. Not responding to your baby's curiosity. When your baby makes a sound, points at something, or looks at an object with interest, and you follow that lead and respond, something remarkable happens neurologically. These back and forth exchanges, where the baby initiates and the caregiver acknowledges, build neural connections in the brain at a rate that does not happen without them. Language development, emotional intelligence, and executive function are all constructed through these tiny, constant, casual moments of shared attention. Researchers at Harvard who study child development call this type of interaction the single most important element of early development. Not educational toys, not classes, not videos. Simply the responsive, present moment back and forth between a caregiver who notices what their baby notices. When those moments are consistently missed, the brain pathways that were ready to form simply do not. Number 8 is something well-meaning parents do to avoid tears: sneaking out without saying goodbye. Someone probably told you that leaving quietly is kinder because it skips the crying. What actually happens is your baby is contentedly playing, and then without any warning, the person they are most emotionally anchored to simply vanishes. To a baby's nervous system, this is not convenient. It is alarming. And the outcome is not less crying overall. It is more vigilance, more anxiety, because the baby has learned that the people they love can disappear without any signal. Research consistently shows that babies who experience predictable goodbyes, even with tears at the transition, develop more secure attachment than babies whose caregivers regularly disappear without warning. The crying at an acknowledged goodbye is not distress being built. It is distress being released. And there is a real and important difference between those two things. Now, before we wrap up, I want you to notice something. If you recognize yourself in any of these 8 things, that recognition matters. It is not guilt. It is attunement. It is the same quality that makes you a thoughtful, caring parent. Your baby does not need perfection. Research is very clear on this. What babies need is a parent who misses a moment and then comes back, who gets it wrong and then repairs it. The disconnections do not shape your child. The repairs do. Every time you return, reconnect, and choose presence, you are doing the most important work there is. If this video gave you even one new perspective, share it with another parent who needs to hear it. I've linked a resource in the description that I think you'll find really helpful.